Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. Saturday's Norfolk Southern derailment in Springfield, Ohio, was the fourth train derailment in Ohio in the last 5 months, including the one in East Palestine that spilled toxic chemicals. Norfolk Southern tells CBS News that no one was injured and no toxic substances were on board the train involved in yesterday's incident. The CEO of Norfolk Southern is expected to testify before a Senate panel on Thursday. We want to begin the show with Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, who joins us from Charleston, West Virginia. Good morning to you, Senator. I want to start on
that. Good morning, Brennan. Margaret, thanks for having me.
I want to start on that derailment. The president last week praised bipartisan railway safety legislation that would have new rules for trains carrying hazardous materials, increase fines for safety violations, phase in newer cars. Will you vote for it? Is that sufficient?
Yes, I'm going to be supporting that. We need to do it. Back in 2015 in Mount Carbon in West Virginia, we had a derailment. 27 cars, tanker cars carrying Balkan oil, went off the tracks and derailed and exploded and caused a tremendous problem there. And it was very, very dangerous. It could have been a lot worse if it had been a little farther down the tracks. Could have torn up a whole town. But with that, we were recommended that the electronic pneumatic brakes should be considered that might prevent this. Routine maintenance checks and auditings and things of this sort. I don't think any of that has been done. And it's time for us to get serious about this. We're moving many, many more products on the rails and on our roads than we ever did before. And we have a lot of people who don't want any pipelines. Pipelines would help alleviate a lot of this problem with the oil that we need in our country, and we will be using for quite some time to do it safer. But out of sight, out of mind, they're thinking if you don't have a pipeline, you won't be using the product. Well, that's far from the truth. And this is the results of people just not making good decisions. And it's what's broken in West Virginia and broken across the country as far as in Washington, the politics. It's broken. Needs to be fixed. I
want to come back to energy in a moment. You're saying it's broken. You gave a pretty fiery speech a few days ago in the Senate. You're at odds with the White House and with many in your own party because you are saying that Democrats need to talk about out-of-control spending and are refusing to negotiate. You did ding Republicans for not offering specific cuts. If you are the deal maker, you seem to be positioning yourself there, where is it that you see room for negotiation?
Well, Margaret, first of all, I encourage Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I was hoping that he would, first of all, take things off the table that doesn't cause a conflict, but most importantly, sit down with the president and reached out to the White House. They did sit down, had a meeting. I'm encouraging much more of that. But what we can do is, can't we get together and just talk about how do we have this much debt accumulated in this short of a period of time? Within 10 years, Margaret, we have accumulated the greatest amount of debt in the history of our country in the shortest period of time. Can't we at least find out what we did and how we expanded? I know that COVID did so much of it, but we're past the COVID problems, and what we need to do is to get back to normal. But we've gone from $3.5 trillion in spending to over $6.2 trillion in spending every year in the last 10 years. That's just unacceptable. You've got to sit down. Anybody that thinks we don't have a problem in Washington, anybody that thinks that the politics is not broken in Washington, is not living in reality, does not want to face the facts and the truth.
So what is the truth here? Because Social Security and Medicare make up nearly 40% of spending in 2023. If no one is touching those programs, where are you finding the cuts?
Well, first of all, just do our job on time. We've been told that if we just had a budget done. We don't even have a budget anymore. The president is a month late in putting his budget out, which will come out next week. But I don't see the House or the Senate bringing the budget forward. And basically, by a piece of legislation was passed back in 1985, we're supposed to have our budgets from the House and the Senate done by April the 1st. The president basically submits his in February, and by September the 30th. I'm told there's billions and billions of dollars of savings just right there if we just do it on time.
Sure,
we're not
but that's
even doing that.
Right.
That's what I say. It's not working. But it gets a downward trajectory, basically. And
but more has to be done.
How about capping some of the
done than that? I mean,
capping some of the discretionary spending.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to talk about right there, but I want to ask you, what is Joe Manchin looking for in this deal? Are you looking for your permitting reform, for example, that Democrats didn't deliver on, though they had told you that you would have an agreement on? Are you looking for that to be tucked into a potential bill in this agreement that you're saying has to be struck between Republicans and Democrats?
Well, rather tucking something in, we're not trying to hide anything. Basically, we don't do permitting, and we don't have permitting reform in America. We're not going to meet the challenges and be energy independent, energy secured. If you're not energy secured, you're definitely not going to be a superpower of the world, and depending on other parts of the world to provide what you won't do for yourself. That has to be done. I don't care what side of the arena you're on. If you want transmission, if you want pipelines, if you realize we're going to have a balanced energy proposal, that's what the Inflation Reduction Act was for, energy security. The administration, this administration has touted that as strictly an environmental bill. It's good for the environment, but it's also very, very necessary for us to have the fossil energy, using it better and cleaner than anywhere in the world, to have the security we need. That's what we need to do, and that's what they've been avoiding. You have to have permitting. If not, all this is going to be voided.
I want to ask you about what appears to be some separation between you and the president. You were quoted a few days ago as saying, we're just in different ball games. We're not even in the same ballpark on many things. Are you going to endorse Joe Biden if he runs for re-election?
Oh, there's plenty of time for the election. This is the problem with America right now. We start an election every time there's a cycle coming up.
Yeah, he's the leader of your party.
No, the bottom line is, let's see who's involved. Let's wait until we see who all the players are. Let's just wait until it all comes out. My main purpose right now is to work for my country and my state. That's my responsibility. I'm not going to make my announcement for anything until the end of the year. I'm not going to make a decision on what my political position is going to be or where I'm going to do for my political future. I won't do it until the end of the year. I got too much work to do now.
Your political future, you mean the question of whether you personally are going to run for re-election in the Senate in West Virginia. Your Republican Governor Jim Justice says he's going to run for your seat, or he thinks he's got a good shot at it. Why haven't you made up your mind?
The bottom line, I got plenty of time to make up my mind. The election's not until November 2024. We don't even file until January of 2024. Yeah. And to be running and looking at the problems you have, we've got a runaway debt, we've got inflation that's killing people, we've got an unsecured energy, we have a border that's out of control. You're telling me we're in the same ball game, in the same ballpark? I don't think so.
You said, let's see who all the players are when it comes to running for president. You've said you're not running for president. Is that an open question, though?
I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about that. The bottom line is, I will make my political decision in December, whatever it may be.
To run for president?
I'm not taking anything off the table, and I'm not putting anything on the table. I said I'll make a decision in at the end of this year.
You'll make a decision at the end of this year as to who you will endorse for president.
What my political future will be.
No, but for president.
What I will be involved with, how I'll be involved. I will be making any decisions I make politically will not be done until the end of the year. I'm focused on fixing what's wrong with Washington. And the politics are so toxic. The more you talk about this party, that party, what candidate and this candidate, look at what you have facing you right now. You've got inflation. You've got basically energy. You've got unsecured borders. You've got geopolitical unrest. And we're talking about everything but that.
We have a lot to talk about. And Senator Manchin, you're welcome back. We got to leave it there because...
I'm happy to come back, Margaret, anytime.